Well, it has been 1 year since 10-year-old Lionel Hall was killed in a speedboat crash near Kates Park in North Vancouver. He was out tubing with a friend when a speedboat hit them, killing Lionel and seriously injuring the other child. North Vancouver RCMP had said speed and alcohol were being investigated as possible factors, and the investigation is still ongoing. Now, since that tragedy, the family is pushing for tougher rules to hold reckless boaters accountable under what they're hoping to call Lionel's Law. With us now to tell us more is Lionel's mother, Shelley Klassen. Thanks for being with us today, Shelley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Shelley, I know I can't even imagine how difficult this past year has been for your family. So thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. How are you and your family doing?
Well, we're doing reasonably well considering it was one hell of a year for us. The shock is really never wears off, but we've decided to really put our efforts and our healing into, creating change so that no other family has to endure what we have experienced.
And how was the memorial yesterday for Lionel? I know some of our colleagues were there, so thank you for letting us be a part of it. What can you tell us about what happened?
Oh, it was just a beautiful gathering of friends and family just to honor our little boy and to come together and share some memories and play some games. And we had little bamboo wooden boats that the kids wrote little notes to Lionel in and sent them off with some candy into the ocean. Just a day of remembering and healing, really, and just an outlet for grief in a positive way. And it ended up being a fabulous day with, the kids playing capture the flag and all these fun things that Lionel just loved to do.
I'm glad you were able to do that. Now, you've told us that you hope that Lionel's legacy is going to lead to safer waters. I understand that you had a meeting with Transport Canada earlier today. Can you tell us a bit about how that meeting went?
Yes, it was a very positive meeting. I was speaking with really the senior officials in charge of regulatory change. They understand that change is needed. They have been looking at different ways of approaching it. And with my proposal with Lionel's Law, amongst other things that we are also proposing, we're just trying to figure out the best route as to how to get change to happen as quickly as possible. Creating new laws obviously can take years, but even changes to regulations can take years. But we have to start somewhere. And it was a day of looking at all the fine points and really seeing what fits in where, because the Canada Shipping Act needs to be updated. Things have changed so much on the waterways, especially, here in Vancouver in the Burrard Inlet with how busy things have become. And marine law has just not kept up to speed. And so we've been looking at various changes to be made. And again, it has to end up going to the legal department within the Transport Canada to see where these changes can fit in and see how quickly we can get them, ready to go and implemented.
It's good to hear that they were open and engaged. Can you tell us a little bit more about Lionel's Law? What's the change that you're hoping to enact, and how do you think that could reform enforcement on BC waterways?
Right. Well, we're looking at, there's two main things that have to happen. With border safety is boater awareness and education on one side of it, and then laws, legislation, and enforcement on the other. Lionel's Law would be an amendment to the Canada Shipping Act that would establish reckless operation of a vessel as a clear offense. And what this does is it would provide peace officers with the authority to act on reasonable grounds of reckless conduct and remove dangerous operators from the water and, possibly impose a 30-day suspension of their PCOC. And then repeat offenders would face permanent, revocation of their boating privileges and license. But really, it's to define what reckless boating or reckless operation of a vessel means, so that when peace officers or law enforcement, RCMP or VPD come across someone, they can say, "You did A, B, C, or D," and now you're off the water. At this point, it's a very broad sort of language within the law. And we're just hoping that if it's more defined, then, we have an easier way of getting, repeat offenders off the water before something terrible happens.
I was going to ask you, what is the current definition of reckless operation of a boat on the water?
I don't have the language in front of me, but it's pretty broad, I think. I might have it in my notes, but it's more, I think it's, when you take your PCOC, it's basically to boat safely, right? When it's not actually a license. It's not like your driver's license that you carry, because it's something that's issued for life. And so what we're looking at as well is the fact that this PCOC card, it's the same card someone would get if they're driving an aluminum little boat with 4 horsepower, or someone, say, driving a massive speedboat with twin engine 600 horsepower. And it's crazy that there's not a tiered system in licensing and education and certification, depending on the size of your boat and the power of your boat. And so that is one of the main amendments that Transport Canada is looking to implement at this point as well. So not only can they remove reckless boaters off the water, but people who are the operators of these vessels know how to manage their vessels accordingly in a safe way.
So we just heard that over the past weekend, this is also very tragic. A 17-year-old boy presumed drowned after a boating incident in northern BC. We don't have all of the details about exactly what happened, but what are some of the biggest gaps that you see in boat safety right now?
I find that many people who live on the water and are part of marinas, they're pretty savvy as to the way of the waters. I think it's sort of the day trippers, the people that use the public boat launches that go into areas where they don't actually know the lay of the land. And let's say Kate's Park and the Burrard Inlet, it's a very unique waterway. It has wide and narrow areas. It has blind spots. It has these nooks and crannies. And people coming in or launching off the public boat launch don't necessarily know what the speed limit might be or where it's safe to go, say, water skiing or tubing. And what I find is if we could have, let's say at all the different, there's not even that many. I think there's only a handful of public boat launches in all of Greater Vancouver. If we could have maybe a manned station at these boat launches, checking to see if boat operators have their PCOC, making sure they all have life jackets in the boat, there's no alcohol in the boat, questioning, do you know the area? Do you know the speed limit? This is where you should be going to, safe tubing or boating in that spot, careful of the big commercial vessels coming through here. So really it's boater education and information. And then the other side of it is the lack of enforcement on the water. I think there's only a handful of boats, police boats, RCMP and VPD for 160 kilometers of coastline. And the issue with our geography is because the waterways are federal jurisdiction, the Transport Canada doesn't police the waters. It's left up to the different municipalities, and each area of the Burrard Inlet, I think there's something like 6 municipalities that border the inlet, and each of them are responsible for their area of policing, but not all of them have police boats. So I would think if there is a police present in the summer months, in the busy boating months, in these busy areas, such as Kate's Park, then that would be a deterrent for anyone, who feels they can do as they please on the water. And what we've realized that day was, I've been told that many people called 911 prior to the collision to complain about the reckless boating that they were witnessing on the water that day with said boat. And at this point, we still don't even know if anybody was dispatched to go look for that boat. We don't even think there was any boats available to go and look for, or to answer the call to that complaint or those numerous complaints that day. And so we're looking to see what we can do, because the funding is very minimal for marine policing, and it's up to the different districts and municipalities. And I've been working with city councillors and mayors and local MPs all around the Burrard Inlet, and we're just really trying to brainstorm as what can be done. And how can we build a partnership with each other, with the different districts, to all pitch in and get a boat on the water in that specific area.
Now, you've already been able to enact some change, though, and specifically at Kate's Park since that accident. And you've been in conversation, as you said, with multiple levels of government and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Can you talk about some of the changes that you've actually been able to make?
The Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, they've got quite a bit of power on the water in whatever their jurisdiction is. So they are in charge of that area, and they are able to implement changes quickly. So they've implemented a speed limit in the radius of Kate's Park. I think it's something like 300 meters all around. 5 knots per 5 knots, I guess, is the speed limit now. And that is just kind of the area where boats are coming in and out with, the big shipping vessels at the same time. And it's where the boat launch is. So that has been phenomenal. They've also spent the year and wrote a safe boating manual that they've are distributing all around. And I'm hoping people will take the time to read that, because it's quite impressive. I think they're going to be setting up some buoys in the water with speed limit signs at the same time. And then the District of North Vancouver is, they have a police boat on hand. They just need to get funding to get that police boat manned and on the water. So there is quite a bit of action happening.
Yeah, it sounds like there's been plenty happening since your advocacy has started. Now, you've said that your family's received a lot of support from the community since Lionel's passing, and even just yesterday at his memorial, I saw that there were first responders from North Vancouver there. What's it been like seeing this community reaction since what happened with Lionel?
Well, it's, we wouldn't have been able to get through it without our community. It's every family's worst nightmare. Mm-hmm. And I think it really hit a chord with everyone, people we don't even know. The support has been phenomenal. And we are incredibly grateful as a family. And it's what's keeping us going. So it's been amazing. And I do want to do a shout out to all the first responders that answered the call that day, because we were told there are multiple units that came, and I can only imagine what that must have been like for them. We weren't on the boat when the accident happened. Lionel was with another family, his best friend, and there was 3 adults and 3 children on the boat. So we weren't there at the time. And the community has just been absolutely phenomenal, as have the First Nations. The Tsleil-Waututh Nation reached out. The elders reached out. They did a burning ceremony for Lionel. We had a talking circle, a healing circle. They've been amazing. The council had me in for one of their meetings to listen to my proposal on what I would like to see happen. I think one of the fastest ways that we can get better enforcement on the water is through the Tsleil-Waututh Nation's willingness and ability to be the eyes and ears on the water. So we're looking to see if the Guardian program can be expanded to the waterways, because the waterways are their highways, and they are very willing and able to do that. So that whole process is underway as well.
And so what's next steps for you as you look at, the change that you want to enact through Lionel's Law?
Well, we're consulting with the Community Against Preventable Injuries, and they're researching really they're researching countries, say Australia, who already have an incredible marine system in place, and what it is they're doing to keep their waterways safe. We would like to initiate a pilot program here as well, starting next summer, and to see how that goes. And so whatever research we come up with in evidence-based safety proposals, we're going to be taking that and handing that over to Transport Canada in the near future. And hopefully by next year's boating season, we can implement a pilot program with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation on the waterways.
Okay. Well, Shelley, thank you for sharing a bit of Lionel with us. Thank you for telling us about all the work that you've put in since that accident. So appreciate you taking the time to speak with us this afternoon.